need ammunition, when you talk to your friends and relatives and people next door, if you need ammunition, they say, well, isn't she kind of a moderate? Well, let's just look at the record. Susan supported the Bush policy in Iraq from the beginning. She has supported it all the way to the present day. Here's what she's saying. Well, maybe we should change the mission, redefine the mission a little bit, and then we'll someday reduce our forces. That isn't a change in policy. That's really keeping an open-ended commitment to maintain at least 100,000 troops in Iraq for years to come. Now, Mike Michaud doesn't agree with that. He thinks we ought to have a deadline to bring our troops home. I think we ought to have a deadline to bring our troops home. And if you still thinks we ought to have a deadline to bring our troops home. But remember this. Susan Collins was chair of the Chief Oversight Committee in the United States Senate for 4 years. And every time there was a headline about Halliburton getting a no-bid contract, Halliburton overcharging by tens of millions of dollars the amount they should have been paid for feeding our troops or for providing our troops with oil. Every time there was a headline like that, she had an opportunity to just hold a hearing, just do her job, just conduct an investigation. And she never did. So she bears personal responsibility for a portion of the catastrophe that is Iraq. And that's one reason that we have to have a change in the United States Senate. And it's one reason why I am going to win this race. Healthcare has been the primary issue I've worked on in Congress for the last 11 years. I have watched Susan Collins carefully. You know where I stand on healthcare. We're going to have universal coverage in this country, and we're going to have it once we have a Democratic president. I've watched Susan's position on healthcare, and I can't tell what it is. I would like to know what it is, because I might have a few comments, but I can't tell. I do know this, that on the Bush economic plan, she's there with the president every single time. And that plan summarized goes something like this. Feed the rich, starve the poor, forget the middle class. That's it, in a nutshell. That's it. Tax cuts for the richest people in the country. She voted for every single one. Olympia didn't. Less money for education, for health care, for environmental protection, for Head Start, community development, small business. I need a breath. That's what she's been for. That's what she's been for. Not what she says, that's what she's done. And I think when you look at what's happening to families here in Maine, people living from paycheck to paycheck, people like a guy named Neil Parent that we talked to in Belfast today, we asked him about health care. He has a small gallery on Main Street in Belfast. He said, well, I have a $15,000 deductible. And I said, that isn't health care, that's home insurance, isn't it? That's home insurance, not health insurance. And there are so many people in Maine. They can't afford to get their kids even to the university system. They have jobs without benefits, they have retirement without security. They need a better deal, and we're going to give it to them. On the big issues, there are major differences between Susan and me over the last 11 years. And let me just rattle through a few, if you need it anymore. She voted for the energy bill, the Dick Cheney energy bill, which moved $14 billion to the oil companies, the oil and gas companies. She voted for Medicare Part D, which moved tens of billions in dollars in excess profits to the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies. She voted for the military commissions bill, which stripped Americans held for years of the right of habeas corpus, a right which goes back to 1215 at Magna Carta. She voted for the torture bill, which allowed the president to redefine the Geneva Convention definition of torture. She voted for Sam Alito. Is that enough? Yeah. Have we done enough? Is the case clear? I think so. Let me just finish up with a couple more things. I said at the beginning that I wanted to recapture one of those progressive moments like the one we had in the 1960s. When you think about that, the civil rights movement, the women's movement, the environmental movement, the effort to get out of Vietnam, all came together and created a grassroots energy that we have been missing for a long period of time since then. With 1964, with that landslide election, we not only had the grassroots energy, we had the votes. And what happened? Medicaid created in 1965. Medicare created the same year. The Voting Rights Act of 1965. Ed Muskie leading the way with the Clean Water Act. That whole very productive but brief moment, that progressive moment in American history, we can recapture again. But here's what it takes. It takes all of you. All of you. There are a handful of states in the country, maybe 6. Handful of states in the country that will decide the direction of this country, and we are one of them. We are one of them. Because we have to have 56, 57 Democratic senators to accomplish what we have to do for the American people. And therefore, we're lucky, we've got a chance, but we also have a responsibility to the rest of this country. We have a responsibility to do the right thing. We have a responsibility to give them the chance to have one of those moments. And if we do this and do it well and do it right, and I believe we will, then we will bring our troops safely home from Iraq. We will have health care reform and provide universal coverage. We will deal with the threat of climate change and the problem with our energy sources on the scale that they deserve. We will bring back fiscal discipline, fiscal responsibility to the United States Congress, and we will recover the respect for America around the world. That's all that's at stake. That's all. It's a big job. But don't ever believe, just because you have seen what this administration can do, that we are not that far away from one of those moments when we can, in fact, transform this country and transform the world. All it takes is all you've got. And all you've got is all I ask for. We are going to win this election.